Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately titled IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association, and as part of our efforts to promote play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, and these are conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. You can find all the Porch Play Chats by going to our website at ipausa.org. In that upper top hand right hand corner, subscribe to our YouTube channel, be a friend on our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, and magically, every Monday, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is Emily Van Laan. Did I do it right?
Very
I'm on
close.
it.
I like it. Yeah.
Oh,
Van
okay,
Laan.
good. I'm
I've got my
very
real
close.
Chicago nasally accent on it there.
Got
Van
it.
Laan.
Okay. Well, I'm auditory, but that doesn't mean I remember it. So Emily has 10 years in environmental and early childhood education, getting her start in public schools and working her way to non-formal education, where she developed and facilitated a program for young children and their families. Emily is in her current role as conference and communications specialist with the Natural Start Alliance, and she's been there for several years, since 2019, where she amplifies the benefits of time outdoors in early childhood, connects nature-based early learning professionals with resources and opportunities, and coordinates the annual nature-based early learning conference. She holds a bachelor's degree in in elementary ed. And then Emily's getting ready to take on a new role. And what is that new role?
Yeah, so it's a little under wraps right now. We haven't actually made an announcement about
Okay.
it, but yeah, so I
Secrets.
currently yes. um, but we acquired a new project at Natural Start. And so I'm still going to be on the Natural Start team, which I'm thrilled about because it's an amazing team to be on. But I'm going to be developing some new educational materials. So I'm
Wonderful.
really, really excited. And it's going to be about, getting people, same as all of our other work, getting people outdoors, especially young children and their families. So
And that is fabulous. Because we need to get more people outdoors, right? And one of the things that I think is that people have a lot of curiosity about, but really aren't really quite sure what to do about it is having nature preschools or
mhm.
forest kindergartens or whatever terminology that we call. And that is the topic that you were going to talk about today. And I'm really excited about that.
Oh yeah, I have so much to say about it. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. And thanks for that wonderful introduction, Deb. So as you said, I'm with the Natural Start Alliance, and Natural Start Alliance is a part of the North American Association for Environmental Education, which we shorten not so much shorter to NAAE. And so, yeah, Natural Start is the early childhood project of NAAE. And specifically our work, before I get into nature preschools, I want to share just that a little bit about the Alliance and what we do, if
Mhm.
you don't
Oh,
mind.
please.
So our work focuses on providing support to educators and other professionals in bringing more nature into the spaces where young children learn. And
Mhm.
one example of that is our nature preschools, or like you said, by other names, outdoor preschools, forest kindergartens, nature-based preschools, all kind of, they all have some of them have a little differences, but we use kind of the umbrella term of nature preschools. But that's one type of program that we work with. And we also work with professionals in informal settings, just to incorporate more nature into the lives of young children. So members of our network teach in a wide variety of settings: nature centers, public schools, preschools, enrichment programs, camps, early learning centers, and
Mhm.
more. And really, the goal that we're working towards is a future where every young child has access to high quality education that includes nature and the environment every day. And that's a really big goal. And there's a spectrum of what this can look like in early learning settings. And so, we really believe that every kind of early childhood environmental education is valuable. And there are, a wide variety of strategies that educators can use to help children develop environmental literacy, which is another goal of what we're working towards. And when we say that, and we use the term environmental literacy, we mean helping children develop skills, knowledge, and dispositions that will help them be engaged in their communities, feel confident, they can help nature and the environment and each other. So it's like nature preschools is one type of program that we really support. But I want to emphasize that we are for all kinds, wide spectrum of programs that integrate nature into their curriculum, whether they're formal or informal. So, but nature preschools are what I'm, really here to talk about, because I think they're unique, and they are something that a lot of people don't know a lot about necessarily, but they're growing rapidly across the United States. So I wanted to start maybe just by like defining like what is a nature preschool, like what does that really even mean, or what does that look like? And so I kind of described a little bit like this spectrum of incorporating nature into early learning settings. And on one end, you might have, like a more traditional daycare, but they have an outdoor space that they use, or they're bringing natural loose parts into the classroom. And, or I think it's really common for preschools to talk about animals and plants and environments and weather, and because that's all pretty familiar or relatable to a lot of children. So on one end, you might have just a program that is traditional in a lot of other ways, but they incorporate nature here and there.
Right. So I think what I love already about what you're saying is you don't have to be a forest kindergarten, and you don't have to be a nature preschool 5 days a week, 9 hours a day. There's a continuum of how to do it.
Yes.
And so if you're an early childhood program and you say, wow, we have this beautiful space next door or a block away or a block and a half away, maybe we could visit it to start with, maybe 2 mornings a week, right? So that we baby step our way into it. Because sometimes I think people who haven't been in nature,
it makes people nervous.
Yes, it makes them nervous. It makes them uncomfortable. They're afraid they're going to get bit by insects.
Yeah,
that would be me.
a lot of people are hesitant. That's like totally normal, very fair. Maybe it's not something that they personally have a lot of experience with, or even parents, maybe it's just not something that's like they didn't experience as a child. They're not used to incorporating that. And another barrier we hear from educators who are more hesitant to incorporate nature is because they feel like they themselves are not knowledgeable enough about, you think we're going to go outside for a nature walk, and they feel that they have to be able to identify every plant and identify every animal and be able to point out everything that's happening. But we really try to emphasize that that is not necessary, that it's important to be a co-learner with children, and that you can go out and learn together. You can figure it out together. The point is really being out there and exploring and following the children's interests. And so, yeah, definitely, I think just getting started, just going outside maybe for a little bit, or bringing natural materials in and just slowly building up your comfort. And absolutely, we have no thought that every school should be a nature preschool. That is not what we're thinking at all. But we do want every early childhood program to incorporate nature in some way, because we know the wealth of benefits. And so in this spectrum, you might start out with something small, and then sort of the other side of the spectrum is this full immersion in nature. So nature preschools are programs that typically children in these programs are spending at least 30% of their day outside, usually more. So we don't have like a hard line on how we define them, but that's just what we know about nature preschools, is that they're usually spending at least a third of their day outdoors. And that's a preschool day, so that's 5 hours for a full day, or maybe 3 hours for a half day. And so even with the preschools that are spending 100% of their time outdoors, which actually represents not a small percentage of
wonderful. That's
programs.
so wonderful.
Yeah, like fully outdoors, they're never inside. Even with those programs, that's often 3 hours or 5 hours, which is fantastic, but we're not talking 8 hours nonstop, outside. So nature preschools are programs that are spending a lot of their time outdoors. And there are also place nature at the heart of the curriculum. So, when they're planning what they're and I'll talk about curriculum a little bit more and what kind of curriculum nature preschools follow. But when the educators are planning for activities or sort of giving a loose structure, they're always coming back to nature and the environment and those connections and those dispositions that they're establishing, really like laying the foundation for environmental literacy as children get older. And so they're outdoors, nature's at the heart of the curriculum, and then they sort of follow these dual goals, like a more typical early childhood program, of course, is going to be focused on child development, and nature preschools are also, goals of child development, healthy child development, including social, emotional, cognitive, the whole gamut, so, and then not only child development goals, but also the environmental literacy piece, which I keep coming back to. So those are kind of the defining characteristics of what make a nature preschool. A nature preschool is the time outdoors, nature being central to the program, and not just, and following high quality education, child development standards, and also environmental literacy. So all of that mushed together makes a nature preschool, which, is just a little different than a more typical early learning setting.
So I'm gonna stop you for a minute and say, let's look at because I think that is a perfect description of a nature preschool. And I love how you want to come back and talk about curriculum, because it's not what comes in the mail.
Exactly. Yes.
It's not the notebook you're handed at the beginning of the year. It's Bebba says the child is the curriculum, right? So that's where you're headed. But I also want to talk about the similarities, maybe, so that people don't think that's totally outside the box. So the similarities between a traditional early childhood classroom and a nature-based classroom. And so I'm just going to throw some things out there, and you can say yes, or no.
Sure. Yeah, I love it.
Throw things out there. So, circle time.
Ooh, starting strong right off the bat. So
right off the bat.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this actually, because I want to say like yes and no, in the way that I think what I might call it is more of a gathering time. I think it's pretty typical for nature preschools to have a time where everybody is together at one point during the day, because there are plenty of points during the day in a nature preschool where kids are off, all within a defined space that is safe. But they might be doing sort of their own thing or in little groups, or somebody's with one teacher here one-on-one, but there is usually a time during the day where they gather all together. And usually this time is for music or movement activities, or something that surprises the people a lot about nature preschools is often they'll have a fire. And so they might all sort of gather around the fire in community. But it's not going to be the image that some people, might think of when they think circle time. What day is it? What's the weather? Here's the date. What's the time? Move, this.
I know.
That's not typical.
No, and it shouldn't be in even early childhood programs that are not nature-based. So, okay, that was a hard one. I started you off hard.
Yeah, I felt prepared though. Snack? Yes. We just had a whole conversation going in our Google group about snack. Snack is a part of nature preschool. Sometimes kids will bring their own, and you do have to get creative about how to do snack out in the woods, perhaps if that's your setting. But I think what's really cool about snack at nature preschool is a lot of times, for example, if it's a cold time of year, they'll do like a warm snack. They might warm it up over the fire, or they'll have hot tea, or they'll have, something warm that the kids can have their hands around to warm up. So it has like a really special role in nature preschool. So snack is, everyone knows snack is essential, right? When you're working with little kids.
Yeah. Choice. So child-initiated choice.
So much choice in nature preschool. Yes. So a touch on this a little bit, the curriculum aspect. So nature preschools follow an emergent curriculum. So that means that the curriculum really follows the children's interests. It's really guided by the children's interests. So maybe the educator planned to talk about trees, and they were going to, focus on trees that day. But then it rained the night before and there's puddles everywhere. Well, listen, now we have to do puddle jumping. We have to.
Yeah,
And so there is a lot of choice. And also going back to how you might come up on a nature preschool group, and they're out in their space, and you might see lots of little groups going on because these kids over here they wanted to do tree climbing. And so there's an educator with them that's sort of helping, making sure that everything that's going on is happening safely. And then maybe kids over here need a little bit of quiet time. Maybe they need a little bit of time to just relax. And so they have a little fort area, and they're sitting and they're reading a book. So there's lots of choice in nature preschool.
And I think the beauty that, again, we could transfer back into a classroom is that they need that choice to develop a sense of agency and to follow their own interests. So if you say, today, I've planned for you to read a book about fall, and we're going to talk about the things that we see in fall, and maybe we'll go outside and look at some leaves. That's really, some children are going to be rolling their eyes. Or you could say, over in the book area, or when we go outside this afternoon or this morning, I have this book about things that happen in the fall, right? And so if you want to come hear the book, I'll have it outside on the playground, right? So it's a choice.
Yes.
Not, okay, we're all going to sit here and you're going to kick each other because you don't want to be here, right? So again, I think we have to think, what's the goal? To get them to enjoy reading and hearing stories and books, or to make them be miserable when they'd rather be in blocks playing, or outside on the playground, or at the park. So I think it's the compare and contrast between the two approaches, that whether you're a nature person or not, you could take lessons from nature preschools. to make your classroom more appropriate or effective for the children that you have in it. Nap time.
Yeah, nap time happens at nature preschool, and oh, how darling is it when you see and they'll so some nature preschools will come inside. They have an indoor building and they'll come inside to take nap if that's part of their daily flow. But I've also seen naps in hammocks all set up in the forest, or you know, on little cots or sleeping pads, like when you're camping. So yeah, they still do it. And that fresh air when you're napping is so healthy. I don't know, I don't know exactly what it's called, but there is a practice, and I feel like maybe it's in Sweden or Denmark. So Scandinavian countries have really been doing this for much
Long
longer
time.
than it's been popular in the United States. And so not, and I think it's because the sort of the attitude there is more just keen on being outdoors and just adapting.
And it's cold there, people.
But
Cold there.
I've heard and seen pictures of babies napping outside in their in for nap time. Like they'll just be outside, even if
Yep.
it's cold. Of course, always we come back to safety. You know, no one is doing anything that is going to be inherently dangerous or hazardous to a child. They're bundled up properly, but it's so normal there, you know, for babies to be taking their naps in the fresh air. There might be a word for it, but I just think it's so cool. And
It
that
is.
mentality is definitely embraced in the nature preschool. So you'll see kids napping or resting, and you know, a little dirt doesn't hurt. So
No, a little dirt does not hurt. I think that's why we have so many allergies, is we're way too clean. Okay, so I'm trying to think of another part of the day. So I think we did all the things that are in a typical preschool. So what else should we be thinking about in how to go on that continuum and baby step your way to spending more and more time outdoors? What could child development programs do, or early childhood programs consider in their daily schedule to find more time for that child initiated? Because I mean, if you're talking 3 to 5 hours of child initiated play, oh my God, that's like a dream for every child. And what everybody my age, and I'm old, what I did every day, right? I was outside playing for
I
9 hours,
know,
right?
I
Every
know.
day.
So that's a really great question, and it's reminding me that we have a really good article on the Natural Start website that's called Bit by Bit, Increasing the Natureness of Your Program. So there's, I'm sure, some great ideas in there, which I can find. But I would say going on a walk is a really accessible way to incorporate more time outside. Now I know that you know, there's programs located in so many different settings, but just going for a walk is often, children don't walk that fast, and they have to stop every 4 feet because they find something amazing that they want to look at, and that's incredible. So that's a really good like entry activity, and something that nature preschools do probably almost every single day is, okay, now it's time for us to gather together and we're going to go on our nature walk. So I think that's a really accessible one. And then I also like to think, you know, in thinking about how traditional preschools, I don't love the word, you know, a traditional preschool, but like a more typical preschool versus a nature preschool, is that people imagine, oh, there's academic learning happening in a traditional preschool, but that's not happening in a nature preschool, then a nature preschool is just absolutely a free-for-all, and all they do is play all day, as if we don't know that playing is learning when you're a young child. But there is also academic learning that is happening in a nature preschool. So maybe there's an activity that you do in your preschool program that you could just see, can I do this activity just outside? I don't have to change anything about it. Maybe you have a story time or a loose parts play time, and can you just take that outside? No other changes, just take it outside and do it there and see how that feels. So I think that's a really good starting place. You don't have to do any additional planning depending on where your outside space is, but just take it outside, see how that is. And then let's say you were doing like a process art activity. Can you take that outside? Okay, maybe can you change some of these activities so they incorporate natural materials? Now you've just made a small change to something that you're already doing, and you can just slowly build up your comfort with doing these activities. I think something that a lot of outdoor educators, not just in early childhood, the perspective they take is like, we can teach anything that is taught inside a classroom outside a classroom. And so, or any place can be a classroom. The outdoors is our classroom. And so that's a good place to start. Anything you're already doing, just see how it feels to do it outside.
Well, and I think that is an excellent strategy for listeners to hear, that you don't have to go full blown 3 to 5 hours outdoors every day, right? There are baby steps that you can take until your comfort level, to get to your comfort level. And it is, I mean, most programs, and here's the thing that kind of puzzles me sometimes. Most programs, if it's not too hot or too cold in the summer, do tons of their day outside. So in the spring versus the summer, what could you do outside instead of inside? Think how much healthier you'll be. Think of all those germs that are in the indoor space with children sneezing and coughing and breathing, and think about how much less of that there would be if you were outside in the big open world. So I do think that sometimes we get into these I don't want to call them ruts, but we get into these patterns where, oh, well, we only do centers outside in the summer when we do water play, or and instead the challenge for us is to think about what 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 things could we do outside instead of inside, or what could we repeat? Could we take a blanket outside,
right,
on the grass, and read a story outside versus reading it inside?
And something that's so special for young children and so easy for them to connect with, if you live in an area that has different seasons, is being able to see those seasonal changes. So maybe just as something as simple as, okay, this is the tree we're going to visit, and we're going to visit this tree once a month throughout the whole year. You don't have to do really anything else other than you go and you make observations, you play around the tree, and children can see those seasonal changes across the year, and they start to, form those connections to the place that they are, the place that they live, and understand that they are connected to nature, not separate. And so I think that's a good one. And you hit on something that I think is one of the most common things that we hear from people who hear about the concept of nature preschools and think, amazing, love it. But of course, you can only do that in areas where the weather is always nice. Like that is so frequent. such a frequent comment. They love the idea, love the concept, but can't see how it's possible to do that in the majority of settings or the majority of like climates around the country. And something that I think is so cool to share is that, so Natural Start did a survey of nature preschools in the US in 2022. We published it this year in 2023. And it was a follow-up to a survey we did in 2017. So we're sort of tracking changes in nature preschool over time. And first, I want to start by sharing the number because it just is so cool to me. In 2010, when nature preschools just started to become sort of catch on in the United States or grow rapidly. So they've been present in the United States since the 1960s, which is incredible. And they were mostly at nature centers at that time, and now they're in so many different settings, like I said. So they started to expand in around 2010. And at that time, we counted around 50 or so, like a few dozen nature preschools. And then we did the count in 2022, and there are over 800.
Oh my God, that is
I know.
amazing.
It's so cool. And not just the number of programs is increasing, but also the amount of time that those programs spend outdoors. And we think COVID had something to do with that, the pandemic. So probably, like you said, you're not dealing with the air quality quite as much. You have different air quality concerns, or germs spreading, or having to clean every single thing that every surface that every single person touches because you're outside. There's more room to spread out. And so we think that the pandemic probably influenced the amount of time that programs were spending outdoors. And what I wanted to, what got me started on this is, of those 800 plus programs, most of them are located in the northernmost states
where it's cold.
Yeah, so people think, oh, they must all be in California, they must all be in the South, where of course heat is another concern or something you have to pay attention to. But California, yes, but also Washington State and Minnesota are the states that have the 3 states with the most nature preschools. So each of those states have more than 50 nature preschools each. Minnesota,
I know,
it's cold.
Hot and cold. Hot.
Yes.
I've been to Minnesota in the summer. It's hot.
Yes.
And it's really cold in the winter.
And it's cold for a long time. Like there's a lot of nature preschools located in the Duluth area, which is northern Minnesota. And by the end of October, they're starting to get snow, and they have snow until well after most places have the snow has melted.
Like
and
May.
So it's not just for part of the year, it's for the majority of the school year. They are cold and they have snow, and they embrace it. They make it a priority to spend time outdoors. And so there are certainly a lot of considerations that they have to build into the program, like having the right gear and doing, maybe those programs aren't outside for 5 hours straight. They may take breaks and come inside and warm up for a bit. They'll have warm drinks. They do lots and lots of movement, or, sometimes referred to as like heavy work, like pushing wheelbarrows, and, keeps the kids warm. And most nature preschool teachers will tell you they get uncomfortable far before the children get uncomfortable. The kids are never complaining about it, but that's because they're wearing the right gear. And educators know what to look out for in terms of making sure everyone is safe and comfortable, because young children can always tell those things, but educators are trained in that. So I think it's just like fascinating to think about. Nature preschools are demonstrating that outdoor play can happen in every season in such a wide variety of locations. Like there are programs in urban city centers, you know, there are programs also out on farms and in forests, and but also in public parks or in people's backyards. And so the spread of this approach to early learning, it's not just one type of program and one type of setting and one type of climate. Because there are these so many programs now, they represent all kinds of settings, all kinds of weather. And I think that's really shows that it's possible. It can be done.
So we're almost out of time. So I want you to give me two or three things you want people to, I know it goes so fast.
It did go so fast. I could talk for another hour about this.
I know, and we could, and we will, because we'll do more of these. But one of the two or three things that I want you to leave everybody with. But the other thing I think that might be a question for people, licensing would never let me do this. Licensing would never. So I think that's the next one. So here we've said, here's the continuum. Here's your baby steps. But I think next time it's I don't know if it's a myth, but how are they approaching nature preschools in these states or communities, and either not being licensed or being licensed? So that's where I think we need to go next.
Yes.
Because I think people will say that's the biggest barrier. Oh, we've never, I can hear them in my head. Licensing would never let us do that. And I always look at them and it says, licensing, no one ever let you do that. Or is it because you don't want to do it?
Yeah, maybe examine what the real reason is. But I want to start by acknowledging that it can be a barrier for people. It can. And it's so case by case. It really depends on who your licensor is, like who's the person who's coming out to examine your program. What kind of relationship do you have you built up a rapport that like they might allow you to try some things that are out of the box and support you in that? And so I acknowledge that sometimes it's not always easy to get your licensor on board. Like it can be challenging. It does sometimes take some time. But in terms of licensing for nature preschools, it's a really complex issue for outdoor education. To try to put it briefly, programs that operate entirely or even mostly outdoors can't always be licensed. So there are programs that can't be licensed that operate in this space. And that's because our licensing systems were really built around the idea that education takes place indoors.
Right. No, and I think that's the big piece, right? And is it Washington State that now has licensing rules for outdoor programs?
Yeah, so there's some really exciting stuff happening around licensing. And in fact, the Natural Start team just we did expand our capacity for policy advocacy because there's so many things happening. Like Washington was the first state to license fully outdoor preschools, and that happened in 2021. And that was a big deal. And they did so much work that is really foundational in other states being able to, build on that. Every place is going to be different. So the licensing standards that were established for outdoor preschools in Washington are going to look pretty different than the licensing standards in, let's say, Florida. But it's this really wonderful foundation that they've provided. They did a lot of amazing work, and it proves that it can happen. It lends validity to this approach. And so we really do believe that licensing outdoor programs is the path forward to making these programs more equitable, more accessible. And so that's we're talking about for programs that spend all or almost all of their time outdoors, but most nature preschools are licensed.
Yeah, right.
More than half of them are licensed, and that's, there are plenty of programs that have no problem being licensed while still doing most of the things that the fully outdoor preschools are doing. It's just the fully outdoor preschools often don't even have a building
Mhm.
or an indoor location. And our licensing system is built around you license the indoor space and the
Mhm.
outdoor space is for breaks or for field trips or and so programs have creatively navigated that. Like if they have an indoor space, they can license the indoor space and they still end up spending a lot of their time outside. But every time they are outside or they go into the beyond, which is a common term used, it's treated like a field trip.
Right. Okay. So that's the next porch play chat because I think people will want to. So, how are they a nature preschool and be licensed? And I
Mhm.
think what you just described is you're going on a field trip outside is going to be the key that people
Yeah,
can
that
do.
definitely is it. A lot of programs utilize that approach. And then something else I just want to say that I've heard people say, and maybe even I've heard you say, is
Uh-oh.
no, I mean it in a good way. A license, if your licensor says like you can't do that,
Oh yeah.
know what the rules are and say, show me where it says I can't do that
Everywhere.
because of course, we're not putting children in danger. We're doing things safely. We have enough staff to be able to do these activities. Those things are all really important. We've done the risk benefit assessment. But if there's sometimes they think, oh, you can't do that. But it's like,
Sure you
where does
can.
it say that? Because I think we can. And so just know your stuff and defend yourself and, and lean in to knowing that you're doing the right thing and that you're providing a positive experience for children. So
And I think it's not something they do intentionally, it's their own perception of interpreting those rules, and we're human.
mhm,
So I would
absolutely.
question my licensing rep. Where does it, I don't remember where it says that. Could you show me where it says that? And then, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, I guess you can do that. Oh, good.
Mhm.
Okay. Cross off that violation on that piece of paper.
And yeah, I think you're so right. No criticism. It's
Yeah.
just it's unfamiliar
Mhm.
and we need to start making it more familiar,
Yeah,
you know?
that's it. That's it. All right. This has been amazing. Don't go anywhere while I close this out.
Okay.
So to learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you so much, Deb.